Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Kesteven series. This is a large Lincolnshire district centred around the town of Sleaford. There's 75 parishes here, so let's take a look at one of them. Welcome back to North Kesteven again, folks. Now we're beginning this one literally at the western end of the village because we're on a road that's called West End. So we can only go east from here. Let's do just that. I've never been to this place before, even though I'm very familiar with North Kesteven, so this one's a bit of a newbie for me. Welcome to Walcott. The North Kesteven series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Walcott, Britons' Cottages. Here we go again in North Kesteven, folks, and this week we're tackling a place that until this visit I'd never been to, despite being pretty familiar with some of the other nearby settlements. This is Walcott, which should not be confused with the village of the same name in Norfolk. That one is much larger. This one is pretty simple in comparison. It lies on a crossroads midway between Billinghay to the south and Timberland to the north. It should also not be confused with a second village in North Kesteven also called Walcott. For that reason, it's sometimes referred to as Walcott by Billinghay, as opposed to its district neighbour, Walcott near Folkingham. Within the boundaries of this one is the site of Catley Priory, and although not much remains of that these days, it still has some importance when it comes to the church. Part of the building of St Oswalds on the central crossroads is believed to have been liberated from the former priory. Elsewhere, Walcott has some modest features, including a chapel, a pub, a village hall, and a school and a playground. There's also two big businesses here. One is related to potatoes and the other is the oldest trailer company in the UK. I quite enjoyed my first ever visit to this place. It's quiet for the most part, if you ignore the main road that is. Let's get walking. We begin our route today on West End, a dead-end road that terminates at a business called Scott Trailers. Specialising in the sale, service and repair of both off-road and on-road trailers, they've been at it for over 50 years, making them the oldest business of their type in the UK. West End is, as you can see, otherwise residential. It runs eastwards from the site of the trailer company towards the school, but before it reaches that it swings southwards and changes its name to Butt Lane. This was a pleasant, peaceful start to the walk, but in a few short steps, things are going to get louder. And this is why. This is the High Street, or the B1189 to give it its official UK road number. This is the road upon which Walcott would have initially grown, although it's nowhere near as important as it once was. Many facilities have disappeared now, including the old post office, which is now a house. There is still a village hall though, and handily this one has some information about it on its wall. Walcott Village Hall was opened in 1996 by Councillor Zena Scoley. Ideal for functions and parties, it can cater for up to 100 people, and it has a modern kitchen, a bar, and disabled facilities too. The hall had a parish notice board as well, so out came the cards. Walcot is done, and we are now well over halfway through North Kesteven. Next up is a former chapel. The first Methodist society in Walcott was formed in 1769. The chapel on the main road, built for the Wesleyan Methodists, was built a century later, in 1869. It ceased as a place of worship in 1982 and has since been converted into a dwelling. Directly opposite this was a house where Blooming Crafty is based. It's run by Jessica Notley, who travels across Lincolnshire teaching floristry workshops and traditional willow weaving. Okay, that brings us to the village's pub. I believe this is the only one Walcott has. I'm willing to be corrected, and I might find out as I walk around the village there's another one. But this is the only one that I know of. It's called the Plough Inn, and there is a plough right outside it. Can you see it? Just there. Let's talk a bit about this next, shall we? Well, I was right. The Plough is the only public house in the village, but there were others years ago. The one some people might just remember is the Wilson's Arms, which was further to the north along the High Street. The pub doesn't have a lot of history to speak of, but it is at least worth a visit to admire the actual old plough outside. Ploughs are a symbol of agriculture, and have been since at least Roman times, if not before. It would appear that this one lights up at night, given the strings of LEDs adorning it. I'm sure that's a nice sight here if you're ever passing through Walcott after dark. Now we're at the village's central crossroads, and standing on the junction is the parish church. This is a Grade 2 listed building of red brick dedicated to St Oswald. This was built in 1852 and was presumably named after a previous chapel, also dedicated to St Oswald, given by King John to Spalding Priory. The previous chapel stood in the centre of the village and was pulled down in the 1790s. Of a type known as a commissioner's church, it reputedly contains some fragments from Catley Abbey, the long-vanished Gilbertine Priory, which was nearby. There's a bit more on that later. Okay, let's have a little explore in here. This is the first church I've actually got into today, because all the other ones have been closed. So, yeah, feels good to be in one. Let's have a wander into the chancel first. See what's in here. This purpley red carpet, I think it's supposed to be red, but it's very weathered. It looks like it's potentially lost a bit of its colour. Up the step. So that is a bit of stained glass there. It's, the whole thing is not the whole thing, should I say, is stained glass. There's obviously a little bit in the middle. Underneath the depiction there, it says, in memory of William Skins, 1887 to 1971. So that's a fairly recent bit of stained glass, that. It's not medieval by any stretch of the imagination. Nothing much more on the walls. There's something here, but I don't think this is anything. That's the Lord's Supper, apparently. Yes, there's nothing else on the chancel walls. The organ on the left here. Small organ for a small church. I suppose it fits its size. We've got a tablet on this wall here. Let's have a look at this. This is in memory of Aubrey Norman Siggs, bombardier, beloved third son of Frederick and Louisa Siggs, mortally wounded fighting for his country in 1918 and died in a field hospital at Maroke. Can't tell what that says. I think it's M-A-R-O-K-E. I think Maroke or Maroke, wherever that may be. Don't know, but that's who that's in memory of. There's another tablet on this side, again brass, and this is a war memorial for those in the Great War at the top and World War II at the bottom. 2 on the bottom, and I believe 10, I think, there on the top. Let's move to the back. There's a font here, octagonal, again pretty small, fitting for the church's size. Another tablet here. This one's in memory of Alec Leverton, Church warden for 40 years, died in 1990. And then at the back, obviously, there's the vestry. And when I came in, I noticed this sign. Look at this. "Forgive me, Father, for I have ginned." Love it. This next section sees us go around the eastern portion of the village. This is East View, a typical residential street in the North Kesteven Fens. It's not all that exciting, it's just a cul-de-sac more than anything else, and there's no landmarks or historical features on it. Mind you, this area does have a small playground and recreational space for the locals, so that's something. If you walk through this, you come to Castle View. Walcott has no castle itself, but the name is a reference to Tattershall Castle, which can be seen in the distance over the River Witham, thanks to the pancake flat fenlands. To get back to the centre of the village, we're using the Drift, a long dead-end drove that runs into the Fens but never reaches the Witham. The area to the east is known as Walcott Dales, and it's a dispersed collection of houses and isolated farm buildings, very different to the main village. In 1811, two ancient trees, one with some 4,000 feet of wood, were dug up at Walcott Dales, close to the River Witham. 6 years later, several tumuli were found too, one of them containing coffins and human bones. Not surprising really, we already know the importance of the Witham Valley. The countryside around Walcott is mainly used for agriculture. Now there's a surprise. Sheep farming is a common practice in these parts, but so too is the growing of potatoes. Arguably the latter is more prominent. Walcott Potatoes on Pinfold Lane is one of the biggest businesses in the entire village. At the other end of this road we have Walcott Primary School. Kelly's Directory of Lincolnshire in 1919 states that this started life as a mixed public elementary school in 1881. At that time it could hold 103 children. With numbers a little more modest now, this has study links to the school in Martin. So as we round the final few corners via Dean Lane and West End, let's fill in the blanks as regards Catley Abbey. Dedicated to St Mary, it was a Gilbertine priory and was always one of the poorest in the country. It was founded between 1146 and 1154 and dissolved in 1538. No sign of the priory can now be seen, but the site is scheduled. We can't actually get to the site because it's on private land off the road to Digby. Not that we'd see very much anyway, very little remains of it other than a few earthworks. After 45 glorious minutes of Kesteven countryside, we've reached West End again. Okay, and that's the end of the main walk around the village now that we're back to West End. There is one part of Walcott that we haven't yet seen, and that's the stretch between the main cluster, which is the bit we've walked around, and Thorpe Tilney, which is over the boundary into the next parish to the north. We'll catch that in the car though on the way out. Lovely place, Walcott. Why have I never been here before? I'm asking myself that question. To finish with, we're checking out the final part of the High Street, the bit that connects Walcott to Thorpe Tilney and, by extension, the parish of Timberland. Walcott's second school, Manor Barn Day Nursery, is along here. So too is a wool shop and a handful of other small cottage industries. But that's really all there is. It's otherwise a residential street that's mostly ignored by passing traffic. It's sad to say that being on this main road means that Walcott is only ever seen fleetingly, mainly by people driving through it. Hopefully, after this little tour, you can appreciate this lovely North Kesteven village just a little bit more. On to the next one then. See you soon. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.